Art takes you to places that you wouldn't have conceived of on your own, and it brings you on pilgrimages, which transforms you in your life.
I'm gonna do things I've never done before because I'm in a place I've never been before. We went to Nepal, and Joanne convinced me to be part of her kind of existing art project and this kind of research.
And so I was thinking about sacred sites and what makes a place convey that kind of sacred energy, and then how can we as artists tap into that sacred energy and convey it through art and poetry. And so what we ended up doing was trekking all the way through the Himalayas to the other side, to an area called Upper Mustang, to the Forbidden Kingdom. Hakim made a book of poetry at the end of our trip, and then I went through and got in there and messed with the poems. I pushed out of my normal method of working in terms of process. And so after I returned from Nepal, I applied for a residency at Bullseye Glass to make the work out of glass. Typically I work in plexiglass. One of the poems that I started with, Hakim wrote about this mountain, and he wrote about it in a way that it could have been written about a person. It felt like a love poem.
It is nearly believable to roll over to your face each morning. Your morning routine enchants me out of sleep. You whisper my name like it is something divine. Your scent, the miracle of morning dew. The coffee on your breeze gets me high.
People in the communities carve prayers onto stones, and then they all bring it to a place that they consider to be sacred, and then it grows and eventually becomes a wall. My original idea was that I was going to make a rock cairn out of glass, and the rock cairns became this amazing part of our pilgrimage as well. When you got up to the top of a mountain pass, which in the Himalayas they're pretty high, so it takes a certain amount of energy and effort to get to it. Everybody takes a rock and adds it to the top of the mountain pass, and so it becomes this effort of community and shared experience.
We hung out with the baby Buddhas in the monastery, these monks in training.
Hakim and I, we could get up early, which is when these baby Buddhas were practicing their chanting, and we would get up and the baby Buddhas would serve us tea, and I would draw and Hakim would write in the monasteries in the morning.
When you worship a God of horizontals instead of verticals, you recognize the divine in the eyes of a person sitting across from you. Flatten your ego, only climb a ladder of compassion towards enlightenment.
Some of the imagery came from the sketches that I drew in the monasteries in the morning, and I redrew them. Many of them were like spider webs that were in the corners.
It wasn't just a religious pilgrimage to a sacred site for one particular religion. I want to see how it's done when people share and their beliefs aren't compromised because of that. This sound of children singing the sun up will shape every last Himalayan snowflake, echo off the mountains made in their own image, reflect back their voice in future ages, where their philosophy folds into wrinkles of face.